So it's great to be here on the latest podcast episode with my good friend Gary Gibson, who is head of international relations and the soccer academies over at Rangers. Hi there, Gary.
Hi, Donald. Hope you're well.
You're looking good in front of that insignia there at the back. That's not a screen, that's a wall behind you.
No, absolutely. You wouldn't expect anything less from me,
no,
would you?
Certainly wouldn't. The only thing I would have expected, maybe you could have had a picture of Boydie behind you.
He would have loved that.
So tell us, Gary, I know every time I go on the club website now, there's always, and I've noticed it in particular over the last couple of years, how internationally the club has made some great partnerships, from China over to the States and Australia. Could tell us a little bit about the international dimension that you're involved in.
Well, obviously, Donald, Rangers Football Club is a global brand, and we've obviously came through a bit of a tough period, but probably during that tough period, it's given us an opportunity to look at the opportunities that lie within the international stage, and a club like Rangers Football Club should be very much in the mix with every other kind of European football club that has an international program. So my role within the club, I manage everything from soccer academies domestically, so that's Scotland, Northern Ireland, and also our international program. So if I kind of take you back just to when I kind of probably came into this role, we had some relationships. We maybe done a camp event in a country, and we maybe had a tour coming across to Glasgow, but we didn't have anything that was really concrete, anything that was longer term that we could positively have an impact within that club. So one of the first things I done was looked at putting, when we were having good conversations with clubs, anything between a 3-year and a 5-year agreement in place, so that we could then start to say, how can we impact you from a player development, but also a coach education perspective? And that was then seen positively from the clubs that we then started to have those conversations with. So at the minute, we're currently in 10 countries. America, Canada, Dubai, Qatar, India, China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Australia, and Indonesia.
Wow.
And obviously that takes time. It takes a lot of good conversations. It takes a lot of building trust. And it's got to be, Donald, a two-way process. It's us speaking positively about Rangers Football Club and everything that brings, and the history that the club brings. Obviously, we're entering into our 150th year anniversary, something we're really all really proud of and delighted to be part of. So, as I said, these conversations take a bit of time, and we also have, if you look at the Rangers Supporters Club over in North America, so a lot of our relationships are based around North America, America and Canada. We're strong. We've got good long-term relationships within that region, and we're starting to have really good positive conversations with the North American Rangers Supporters Association about how they can further support the work that we're doing at Rangers. There's 36 Rangers supporters clubs across North America, so there's an unbelievable network of people there that we should be tapping into. So we're now starting to do that because we're in a real strong position in terms of the relationships and the clubs that we're now working with.
I remember, Guy, I think it must have been a couple of months before the first lockdown, speaking at one of the North American team trips that came over. It must have been, was it the Riverhounds?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when I think of it, it was actually, it wasn't just a trip over to Scotland for them, wasn't it? They were at the academy, they were trained and they were coached by the academy coaches. They were having games against top clubs, and then they were out at Ibrox as well, wasn't they? Did they not play a game at half time? Or?
Yeah, incredible. What an experience for these young players, Donald. And I guess when you look at what we're looking for in an international, from a soccer academy perspective, because I'll probably come on to it, we've got two official partnerships. Orange County Soccer Club in the States, California, lovely part of the world. And then we have Bengaluru FC, which is in Bangalore in India. So we've been obviously driving a lot of the soccer academy relationships as well. And I'll come on to the two official partnerships in a minute. But the youth organisations that we work with, what's that's made up of is creating camp events. So us sending Rangers coaches across to these countries to help with player development, coach education. But again, one of the key things for us, Donald, was the individuals that you're sending across from the football club. They're coming from the academy. It's elite. There's a real standard and a real quality of coach being sent across to these countries, because I think in the past, a lot of clubs have sent young coaches who are potentially just out of college to stick a tracksuit on them. But it's much more than that, Donald. A lot of these youth organisations, a lot of these clubs are now a lot more advanced, so they absolutely get it. In addition to that, we bring tours. So the club have the option to bring tours over to Glasgow. We basically look after everything, Donald, in terms of their training, their games, cultural visits, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Stirling, Loch Lomond, so that they're getting a real robust feeling when they come to Scotland. And that's having an impact in Glasgow and in Scotland from a tourism perspective as well. So, and then probably the last part of the jigsaw, Donald, that was missing was we would maybe do a camp event and then a tour event with one of these youth organisations with a bit of communication in between. They were always asking us about what's your curriculum. We were maybe sending them a PowerPoint or handing them bits of paper. What we've done is we've launched the Rangers Online Coaching Academy, which is an unbelievable resource. And what that does, Donald, is it gives the clubs that we're working with access to what we're doing as a football club and as academy 365 days a year. So from our under 10s all the way through to our reserves, you're getting access to Craig Mulholland, Graham Murty, Kevin Thompson, David McCallum, the heads of phases, Alan Boyd. And it's just a phenomenal resource and something that we're now using internally. So whether you're a soccer academy coach, girls and women's coach, or in the boys academy, everyone's kind of cemented in that one resource now and sharing best practice.
I know, Gary, no one would have wished it, isn't it? But the timing of launching that, the online part of it and what's going on in the world, it's kept the momentum going as well, isn't it? Even though people can't come over to Rangers, they've been able to plug into that online academy and, as you said, just get top level information and coaching 24/7.
Yeah, Don, we've got something like 2,000 coaches on the platform just now, worldwide in various different countries. And coaches can either subscribe to that on an individual basis, month to month. They can subscribe on a yearly basis. But the big one for us is having that dialogue and that constant dialogue and sharing best practice with, for instance, Orange County, Bengaluru, our two official partner clubs. And I said I would come on to those. Donald, I've not seen anything in my travels. I know that there's a lot of European clubs that are now working in various different countries. But when I look at what we're doing with Orange County and Bengaluru, we have bi-weekly calls with both clubs from a football department perspective, commercial and sponsorship, RTV and digital, soccer academies, marketing. So that shows you that we're supporting Orange County and Bengaluru, not just from a player development, coach education perspective, but also the structure of their actual football club. They're gaining access to key members of staff right across Rangers. And you've probably seen we had Danny Finlayson, Cammy Palmer, Matty Shields were over for a period over there. Rangers have just signed the goalkeeper from Orange County. When I look at Bengaluru, the club have signed Bala Devi, the first ever Indian women's player to sign a professional contract anywhere in the world. So it's phenomenal what's going on between both of those clubs, Donald, and I think you'll start to see the fruits bearing of that in years to come.
I had first-hand, dealings and seen the guys come over from Orange County at the academy, and I know, the depth of the relationship there is quite striking, isn't it? And the cooperation, but it shows you, and it's great to hear that as well as the coaching, Gary, there's organizational support and help as well, isn't it? And I think that's what strikes me when you're speaking there. That is such a contrast between California and India. How did the Indian connection, come across? Because that's not such an obvious one, is it?
Yeah, no, of course. It's really interesting, actually, because it was former Rangers player Alan Gow, who I started having conversations with, and his partner Anuj, who's been instrumental in the discussions with Bengaluru, and the CEO Mander Tamhain, who is a first-class individual. Just at that point, Donald, the club were just about to appoint James Bisgrove commercial director, and James came from UEFA and had spent a lot of time working on India as becoming an emerging footballing market. So it was perfect timing.
Yeah.
So we then started having those conversations with Mander, the CEO, and it was clear right from the offset that this was going to be a really positive partnership on both sides, because it was based around player development, coach education, giving players an experience. So we've identified a couple of young individuals. When international travel opens up, they'll come over to Glasgow.
Brilliant.
They'll mix with our youth academy players. They'll get that experience, which hopefully, Donald, like obviously having played myself and played in different countries, that experience that you get as a young footballer, it stays with you for the rest of your life. And probably in addition to that, there's plans for first team games to play against Bengaluru. There's plans for our under-18s to go over to the Inspire Institute for training and games, and the players themselves just going into a different culture will be phenomenal. Myself and James went over. What an experience to go over and see Bengaluru playing, but also visit their academy as well.
Yeah, that sounds an amazing, I suppose, an amazing development. And how, you mentioned India as a developing football nation there. How big is football in India? Because I know it's a big cricket nation, isn't it? Is cricket the number one sport?
Yeah, it's massive. Cricket is obviously, yes, number one, but you can absolutely see that football is now starting to really grab a hold of the nation. And I think there's more and more people watching football games, whether it's the Premiership or various different countries. And I think on the back of the relationship, Donald, that we've got with Bengaluru, what it's enabled James to do is we've signed an agreement with Star Sports. So Rangers games are now being shown over in India. So the more eyes that we have on the football club coming from India is phenomenal. In addition to that, James has bought the rights through the SPFL to showcase Indian games over here in Scotland. So it's a two-way thing, Donald. But the developments on the back of having this relationship have been excellent and will absolutely continue.
And I know where you've been at the club quite a few years, Gary. How did you get into this role? Because obviously it's suiting you and you're having great success there. How did you move into this commercial role?
Well, I have to say, Donald, that when I was offered the job to come and head up the department, you have kind of reservations. Do you think you're good enough to go and do that role? You seek guidance from key people that round about you, and I kind of questioned myself if I had the ability to go and do it. And I have to say, it's been the best thing that I've ever done. It's been a unbelievable roller coaster, probably over the last 3 years, in terms of the travel, the people that I've met, the relationships that I'm now building. And I'll continue. And I came into the club 13 years ago, Donald, on the back of kind of working with SFA and Aberdeen Football Club within their academy. And my first I kind of looked after kind of projects around kind of community engagement, working with young people within the kind of local community. That then kind of progressed into managing community projects, kind of around and looking at bringing funding in for new projects around schools, youth engagement, employability, adult programs, so working with adults who've got maybe alcohol and drug issues, working with people that are in recovery, veterans programs. So I kind of that was kind of the route, Donald, that I kind of went down. In addition to that, I worked part-time within the academy, within the youth academy, which I just absolutely loved, because you would come away from Ibrox, you would then head up to the training ground, you would be on the pitch with the young players. Obviously, you know, a lot of the coaching staff, a phenomenal, talented group of coaches within the academy. But just that, it was a great environment working with the players, bringing an energy and a personality, seeing them develop, and then seeing that kind of progression for some of the young players as they start to either make their way into the first team or they maybe move onto other clubs.
I know it's a great testament to you, Gary, because when I remember, I often see you sitting back in a plane heading to Shanghai or something, and then 2 days later you're pulling on the strip, romping about Howie there. So you obviously love the contrast as well.
No, of course, and I think probably from what I've had to do, Donald, probably in the last 9 months or so, I've had to take a step back from the academy side of things, purely because the amount of traveling that I'm doing, and obviously you're heading up a kind of critical part within the club in terms of our department. So I want that to be as successful as it can be, and do the best job that I can. So focusing my energies on the department had to become that kind of key part. So frustrating that I had to do that, because I love nothing more than being on the pitch and working with the players and the coaching staff.
Well, I you might have listened to it, but I interviewed Aidan Wilson a couple of weeks ago, and he name-checked you as having a big influence when he came to the club.
Good on him.
That's a great testament to
you.
No,
absolutely.
So tell me a bit, let's go back a bit now. How did you get into football? Did you always love football as a kid?
Well, it's no secret I'm a Rangers fan, Donald. So I've had a Rangers strip on as young as I can remember, and there was always 2 players that kind of stuck in my mind in terms of they inspired me, and it was Davy Cooper, and I think when you look at, he was an unbelievable football player. He was creative. He would glide past folk, score goals for fun, and then the other one was Ali McCoist, and I think it was purely down to his kind of goal scoring ability. And as a young player, as a young person watching football, you thrive on watching people that score goals. So yeah, they were 2 individuals that certainly brought me into starting to play football at a really young age within primary school.
Yeah, and what was your development? How did you get involved with the professional game then, Gary? What was your route?
So I think, Donald, probably even before I go into that, like if you look at primary school football, like, and I'm sure if a lot of people listen to this, they'll be able to relate to it. Before you went into school, you played football. At playtime, you went out and played football. At lunchtime, you played football. After school, you went out and played football. And you waited until your mum or dad shouted you to come in when it was dark. And then at the weekends, you would maybe have a game for the school. You would have a game after that with the boys' brigade, and then you would probably play on the Sunday for your boys' club. So those were the bits that I really remember and thoroughly enjoyed. Once I then started playing boys' club football, played with Pollock United for a couple of years, and then I moved to Clydebank. And probably it was really strange, Donald, within a kind of 6-month period, my own development kind of kicked off, and I started to get kind of interest from senior clubs. A lot of scouts were starting to come and watch the games at that point. And when I look back, Donald, in terms of the education that young players have now got compared to my time back then. So on a Monday night, I probably trained with Partick Thistle. I trained with Rangers on a Tuesday night. I trained with Clydebank, the senior team, on a Wednesday, and it was with Davy Cooper.
All right.
and it was on a gravel pitch with a small goal. It was unbelievable when I look back. You trained with your I had a Thursday night off, and I trained with my boys' club on the Friday, and then on the Saturday I would have a boys' club game, and I think I was training with Dundee United on a Sunday, and I'd done that probably for about a year and a half, Donald. So looking back then, young players don't do that now.
No.
Once you go into a club, you're committing to a club probably under 10s, and if you're lucky enough, you stay within that one academy. I just, we didn't have, my mum and dad didn't have the guidance back then, and I just loved going and training with all these these different clubs. I just wanted to play football, so having that opportunity was brilliant. I then moved to St Johnstone Boys Club, and quite quickly after that, I was involved within the academy under Alistair Stevenson, who I think is still head of youth there at the club, and doing well. And after that, I then moved to Kilmarnock. I spent three brilliant years at Kilmarnock under Alan Robertson and Bobby Williamson. Bobby then obviously became the first team manager. And probably at that point, Donald, I kind of realised that my football career wasn't going to go any further. Still played into 21s, but I almost had to put a plan in place for myself. So I decided to apply to Cardonal College to do HND in sports coaching. I then completed the 3 years.
When was this? What year was this, Gary? Yeah. No, the reason I'm asking you is because now, everywhere there'll be HND and HNC sports coaches. But I would imagine even 10 years ago, they weren't as predominant as they are now, isn't it?
Probably 1995, I think, Donald. Round about that time, I went into college, and funnily enough, we have just launched a HNC. I don't know if you've seen it, Donald.
I've seen it.
We've launched a HNC course in partnership with New College Lanarkshire. So, and a lot of the thinking behind that is giving young people opportunities. They'll gain work experience at the club. They'll use the Rangers Online Academy, and that's one that we're really excited about. So probably just coming back, I started doing my coaching badges, and you know what it's like, Donald. You go and do the license courses, so it's that more intense, more elite. Done my children's, done my B license. I was then working in Glasgow with the SFA. My good friend Greg Patterson, and hopefully on the back of this, I'm going to get 15 hours worth of.
I can see that coming
from CPD from Greg Patterson. So I'll certainly be on the phone to him after this. So I had great times there. I was luckily enough, I was offered a job to work with Aberdeen, Donald, within their kind of Glasgow base, kind of working with their under 10s. And I was luckily enough to what basically happened, Donald. It was like under 10s, under 11s, under 12s. So we had like a Glasgow base, and then we had the base in Aberdeen. So when it came to that kind of under 12s age group, we basically merged the best players from Glasgow and the best players from Aberdeen. So I was lucky enough to work with Kenny McLean, Ryan Jack, Fraser Fivey. We had a phenomenal team. It was incredible. Really, really strong team. And I keep in obviously contact with the guys, and Ryan's obviously doing very well at Rangers, and has a fantastic career. So it was probably from that point, when I was there for 5 years, and then luckily enough I was offered the role to come in and work at Rangers within the academy, and then full time within the community programme.
Yeah, it's a great. You have had a great grounding in the game right the way through, from playing to coaching, then going into the commercial side. Gary, do you think it's important to, understand the nuts and bolts of the game before going into a kind of commercial role, or does it help?
Yeah, absolutely helps, Donald, because when I'm having conversations, I can speak strongly about all the work that's going on within the football academy, and in terms of what's the player development, the game model that's in place for the players, the educational parts that's involved for players, because it's not just about the football part, it's the parts off the pitch. The work that you do with the young players as well is phenomenal. So there's a lot more to it. So I can speak to that when I'm having these conversations, especially as we start to implement what we're doing as a football club potentially into an Orange County, into a Bengaluru, or some of these youth organisations, Donald. They're really, really ambitious, and they want to know how you're developing your players. So it's great that we can now do that, and we can shape some of these clubs on a kind of global stage.
And I think it's it's often said, and sometimes it can be heard as a cliche, but it's true, isn't it? It's you're helping develop people, in every country, aren't you? It's not just footballers. It's good people you're helping develop, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's key, Donald. And I think when you have these conversations, it's actually showing that you care.
Yeah.
This isn't just about us putting a badge on another club and saying we've got a partnership.
Yeah.
As I said earlier on, it's much more deeper than that. There's so many people involved, and if we can assist in whether it's player development, whether it's the coach education, but also we're also assisting these clubs with parents. So what we do from a parent education perspective, we're also embedding that and giving that information to these clubs, which is giving them further support.
Brilliant. And how do you see the Rangers brand on the commercial side in terms of football? How do you see it developing going forward globally, with the academies and with the partnerships?
So what I'll probably say, Donald, is it's taken time. We don't have a Barcelona badge or a Man United or a Real Madrid, but what we are is we're known globally. And from an international kind of development perspective, we've had to build our reputation. And that takes time, Donald. That takes the clubs that we're working with starting to speak positively about what we're doing, what we're implementing with them. And then other people start to hear about that, Donald. And I would probably say that the position that we're in now, rather than us always having to potentially go to clubs, we've now got clubs coming to us asking, how do you become part of the Rangers International Football Development Programme?
I think what's great about it, Gary, is I think, knowing you like I know you, and I've seen what you're doing, is any club that would approach Rangers, or when you go out, it's a real connection, isn't it? It's you that's there. It's not just, an email and someone signing something off, as you said. It's that personal connection that's going to be, if it's right, it's going to be deep and grounded for both parties.
Yeah, Donald, and it's real. Whether you're getting access to myself, you're getting access to Ian Greer or Peter Kennedy or Phil Cowan, or even the Academy staff, Craig Mulholland, the guys give us the time. So whether we're putting on a webinar or it is real, you're getting to the key staff within the football club. And when I look at the access that these teams get, as you said earlier on, that team getting to play at half time, they're in amongst the academy. When I look and I see other European clubs and English-based clubs, sometimes they'll maybe take clubs to a university and they'll spend their time there. You're getting in the front door here at Rangers, and that's how we have to be different. And that's how we will start to build that reputation.
That's brilliant, Gary. And I suppose just to finish with, if anyone listening wants to find out more about, the online platform, both as a player or a coach, or is interested in developing a partnership, I was looking at the end of the year, I was looking at my stats for the podcast, and I thought that it's been downloaded in 38 countries. And I thought, I wonder how they understand the Tjuchter accent.
Fantastic.
So how would a partnership club, how would they go about, contacting or making that initial approach to you?
Yeah, I guess it would probably just be via email, Donald. So Gary Gibson at rangers.co.uk. We would be delighted to have further conversations with clubs, coaches. As I said, we're very open to having conversations, whether it's on the online academy side of things, whether it's camp events, whether it's tours. And I think probably during COVID, Donald, I kind of gave myself a bit of a project to work on. And we've now signed 3 clubs, probably soon to add a 4th over in Australia, because similar to North America, we have a large Oceania Rangers Supporters Association. So we've started engaging with them as well. So Australia's been an area of focus, and we want to really build on that. So yeah, any club that want to get in touch, we would love to hear from them, or individual coaches.
Brilliant. And for the online academy, Gary, do they have to go through you, or is there any place on the net where they could go and have a look at it just now? What's in?
Yeah, if you go on to the Rangers website, and if you go into Soccer Academies, the online academy should be on there. But any issues at all, please feel free just to get in touch with myself.
So thanks very much for your time, Gary. It's been great to hear about your journey, and also, you know, the development of the club internationally, and how it seems how quickly really it's accelerated the online and the partnerships over the last 18 months, I think. So that's brilliant work.
Thanks, Donald. No, we're very proud of it, and we'll continue to be kind of relentless in our approach to further develop our relationships globally.
Brilliant, Gary. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Thanks, Donald.
Cheers.